There is not one right, perfect way to minimize your stuff, to declutter, to live as a minimalist, to simplify your life. There's just not one right way to do that. It's different for everybody. And finding the balance between too much stuff and not enough stuff can feel like a moving target, especially as your kids grow, as the season of your life changes, as your interests change. That balance of stuff can feel like a moving target. And I'm feeling that very deeply right now as I'm setting up the dining room and our homeschool room for the year. I'm feeling very deeply that maybe there's too much stuff, maybe there's not. And I really won't know until I actually go to start using these things and doing our routine every day to identify the things that stand out as now clutter. You may have heard some commonly given advice, like the 1 minute rule. If it takes 1 minute, just do it. Or don't put it down, put it away. It's a good one. A place for everything and everything in its place. That advice makes sense in my head, but it's not practical for me. It is not advice I've ever been able to consistently adhere to apply in our life, in our home. And I want to talk about that a little bit deeper in this video, about why those simplified pieces of advice may not work for you the way they don't work for me. Welcome to the channel. My name is Erica Lucas and I share videos about slow and simple living. The design of this channel is meant to be a safe place on the internet to share about the struggles of keeping a house, making a house a home, maintaining your stuff, organizing it, decluttering it, keeping it, getting rid of it, and how that ebbs and flows throughout my life to make it feel for you like a safe space to be able to comment and share and connect and relate to the messy parts of life in a house and how that looks for me. I can't believe it, but I'm starting my 5th year of sharing here on YouTube about decluttering and minimalism and intentional living and simple living. My goal is to share relatable, honest content here and give you the tools that I have learned by experience about how to deal with stuff. And so I want to talk deeper about those guidelines, like a place for everything and everything in its place. That actually came from I guess you would say Henri Fayol in his book, Principles of Management. He introduced this at the end of the Industrial Revolution. He introduced 14 principles of management, and the principle of order was one of those 14. And the principle of order stated a place for everything and everything in its place. This worked well at the end of the Industrial Revolution, obviously, as things were becoming mass produced. And so the principles of management in a warehouse and in a production facility meant that everything in its place, a place for everything and everything in its place, kept order in business, in industry. And that over the last 100 plus years has translated to this piece of advice that we give each other in our homes. Everything, a place for everything and everything in its place. If everything you own has an identified place in your home, it works so seamlessly, it's so simplified, it's beautiful, it's easy to keep. And I shared about that in this particular video here, if you want a little bit of a pre-story to this video, or if you want to watch that next. What I want to talk about more is why that doesn't always work, because it really doesn't always work. The first thing is just too much stuff, right? I mean, that's always an easy one. These guidelines have always failed me, I feel, these pieces of advice, because I have to deal with what is causing the clutter problem to begin with. I have to name the stress and name the calm. So is it too much stuff? Am I just not in the mood to deal with it today? Am I stressed out about something else and I'm using clutter as an excuse to deal with that stress and anxiety? And decluttering and organizing is like a therapy. Is my energy not a fit for the decluttering project? My emotional bandwidth to deal with sentimental things and photo albums, and if it's just not there, the project is going to be hard. And so identifying the causes of how I'm feeling about clutter in that moment have always helped me more than a place for everything in its place. Takes 1 minute, just do it. My energy and my emotions and my feelings and my anxiety were never a fit for those pieces of advice, and that's why they always failed me. Having too much stuff makes it difficult to return all of your things to the rightful place in your house every single day. And when you have a family to keep after and all of their belongings, it gets messy quickly. And of course, you can teach children how to clean up after themselves, but you also have to have your own habits. And that's another reason that I think these guidelines have always failed me, is that the habit is hard to keep for me. The habit of cleaning up after we're done with toys and putting things away. Another reason is that we're not always ready to put something away. A Lego project, an art project, we're in the middle of Bible study, we're in the middle of a game that's taking longer than we thought, and then we don't return to it, and it becomes clutter after a certain period of time. Another thing that I'm finding true this month, as I'm just sort of decluttering and organizing my house right now, is that things have more than one home. Board games live in 2 different areas of our house now rather than one spot. And that was to be able to make space for art supplies on another shelf. And so adjusting things and moving things around to find the right fit to match our life, to match our routine, to match my expectations in a way that doesn't make it feel clutter, sometimes means stuff has more than one home. And when things have more than one home, it can lead to clutter if it gets away from you. Some things don't have an obvious designated place to exist in my house. Library books is one of those things that you would think seems so simple, but for some reason I overcomplicate it. We have tried the basket system, the bag system, where all library books, when they are ready to be returned to the library, go here. Right now it's the area on top of my shoe shelf. There's no basket, there's no container, there's no bag, there's nothing to corral those things. And when we leave the house each day, I just take the library books, they sit on the front seat of my car until I swing by the library and drop them off. The problem with that is not all library books sit there. That's where they go when they're ready to be returned. So I have library books on the desks, on my desk, in my bedroom, on the table, in the kitchen. We have library books because books are a humongous part of our lives here and in my house. And so we lean on the library quite heavily to save the expense of buying books until I'm 100% sure I want to buy them. So library books is one of those things that just doesn't have a obvious designated system or home, and having a designated place or a system may solve that issue temporarily for me. But in our house, books are just ebb and flow throughout the house. Sometimes we take them to bed and read together, and they just end up in different places than previously designated, because the way we handle it, that specific category just changes. It just adjusts. And so there's not a clear place in our home for something. And that's another reason those guidelines have always failed me. And the last thing that I was thinking about when it comes to dealing with clutter in a systematic way, and why dealing with clutter in a systematic way, that like the advice of these guidelines has failed me, is because sometimes we expect other people to put things back where they belong. And that's a high expectation to put on children, to put on a husband, and to put on ourselves. It is a high expectation for me to put on myself, to always put things where they belong, and ask my children to do the same, and my husband. It's not going to happen every single time. Can we slowly build the habit? Absolutely. Are we building those habits? Definitely. Is it much easier now in this 5th year of cleaning up toys, cleaning up art supplies, putting things where they belong, cleaning up our desks, cleaning up the kitchen counter? It's all so much easier than it was at the start of everything, because I reduced the amount of things that we have. The habits are building, but our life changes all the time. Every time the schedule changes and somebody starts a new sport or a new hobby or a new interest or a new musical instrument, the ebb and flow of the house that was working needs a calibration. And we're not always great at calibrating. We're not always great at cleaning up. We're often mid-project, or we honestly don't have the energy to clean it up, and we just leave it for a mess for another day when our energy does match it. And that's been a really tough adjustment for me, is to recognize those physical boundaries of exhaustion and energy, and to say, it's okay that I'm leaving this mess for tomorrow. It's okay to ask for help in cleaning up this mess, even though I made this mess. And learning those principles of order and how to make them fit in our house has been a constant flux. It changes all the time, and learning that it changes all the time, and there's no one steadfast way or rule or a piece of advice that is ever going to make clutter not clutter in my house, has been a lesson that's just something I'm working on still, I guess, and embracing it and leaning into it, and knowing that a mess now doesn't take long to clean up. And in the past, it used to take a long time, or it used to be so debilitating to clean up a mess that I couldn't do it. It's difficult sometimes to hear the advice of, if it takes 1 minute, just do it, or a place for everything and everything in its place. Yeah, those are logical pieces of advice, and they make sense. And if you can build the systems and habits to do that with your stuff, I think that's amazing, and I congratulate you. And I think it's pretty awesome. And it's something I don't know that I'm striving for really anymore, is that I think messes are okay. I think kids make messes, and it's part of their process of creation and learning, and also teaching them that when you're done, it's time to clean it up, and you don't have to do it by yourself. I'll help you. And that has been a big adjustment for me over these last few years. So, okay, those are my thoughts. I hope you're having a wonderful day and that you are well. Thank you for sharing part of your day with me, and I'll leave a link to that video right here where I talked about everything in its place, and a place for everything, and why that works. And this video is really talking about why it doesn't always work. Okay, thanks. Take care.